Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to in-person City Council meeting. I'm so happy to see you all. We have resumed in-person meetings with a limit of 25% public participation allowed. Until the time when we allow 100% capacity in the council chambers, citizens may continue to submit comments or items on today's agenda electronically. I encourage comments to be submitted early. They will be read at the appropriate time during the meeting. Comments will be accepted up to the conclusion of the vote of the item. Comments may be submitted through the City of El Cajon's website, which is cityofelcajon.us. Under Agendas and Minutes, just go to Video Streaming and you'll see a button to submit your comments. The meeting is called to order, and I would like to ask our city clerk to please call the roll.
All council members are present.
Thank you. Would you please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a brief moment of silence? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The city clerk posted orders of adjournment of the March 23rd, 2021 meeting and the agenda of the April 13th, 2021 meeting in accordance with state law, council, and housing authority policy. We have no presentations on today's agenda. And staff, do we have any agenda changes?
Mr. Mayor, we have no changes to the agenda.
Council? That brings us to consent items. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you wish to pull any consent items? Staff?
No, sir.
Actually, I didn't want to pull one, but I did want you to just explain to me a little bit about the dinner and concerts.
Certainly. Mr. Mayor and council members, agenda items 4 and 5 are authorizations to utilize public right-of-way for events held in the downtown that are organized by our downtown partnership. These are this is actually something that you see every year. We are recommending approval of these permits with the condition that we are able to under the health code. So right now, we could not. The first concert is not scheduled until July 2nd, which we should be well into ability to do that. However, if they were doing a concert today, for example, we would have to have some limitations on the capacity for that based on the health code. So we're recommending, rather than waiting for the health code to catch up, we be ahead of the health code, and then once the health code allows us to, we can start issuing the permits.
Oh, okay, great. I appreciate that. All right, I'd like to make a motion then to approve the consent items.
Thank you. And for the record, sir, there are no public comments. And may I have your vote, please? Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Thanks. All right, that brings us to public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments relating to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to statements or questions, and an item may be placed on a future agenda. Angela, did we receive any comments?
Sir, we did not.
All right. Blazing through. There are no written communications on today's agenda. There are no public hearings on today's agenda. And we are now at administrative reports. We have 6 administrative reports on today's agenda. Item 8 is the appointments to the Public Safety Facility Financing Oversight Committee. And staff, will you please tell us about that?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We've been advertising for a while now 4 vacancies on the Public Safety Facilities Financing Oversight Committee. And as to help the council recall, when Prop O was passed by the voters, which was a temporary sales tax measure to pay for public facilities, one of the requirements of that ballot measure was that there would be an oversight committee made up of citizens that could ensure that the money that was being utilized was being spent on the things that the taxpayer said it should be used for. So we are getting actually very close to expending all of that money, but we have these 4 vacancies, and without filling these, it's difficult to hold a meeting. So we would recommend that we fill these 4 vacancies with the individuals identified in the staff report. You'll recognize at least 3 of the candidates that we're recommending were those that applied also for either the Personnel Commission or the Planning Commission most recently, and they saw that there's an opening here and opted to put their names into the ring. So we would recommend that the council go ahead and approve these 4 individuals, and if that's the case, we'll reach out to them and have them start participating in meetings.
All right. That sounds great. All right. Council, any discussion? Do we have any public comments on this?
No, sir.
All right. Then it sounds like a good plan to me. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Move staff recommendation.
Your vote, please. Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Do we want to administer the oath of office now?
I'm looking at the city clerk to see if we're prepared to do so. I know we have at least one candidate in the audience right now, Ms. Harper. Angela, is that something we have the capacity to do? We can do that.
I think that'd be nice.
Is anybody else, any other candidate in the audience? Mr. Griot, Mr. Cardinal, or Mr. Hoger? Okay.
Can somebody take some pictures for Stephanie? She may want to have that.
Yeah, that's fine. I, Stephanie Lorraine Harper, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation free without any mental reservations or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which that I am about to enter. Thank you.
Congratulations, Stephanie. Okay, the next administrative report, item 10, is the 2020 General Plan Annual Progress Report. And I'll ask staff to tell us about this.
Mayor, I think it's item 9.
Am I in the wrong place? Oh, yeah, I apologize, I jumped ahead. The second administrative report is item 9 regarding the concept of dollar days. Staff, would you please tell us about this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is Frank Carson. I am the Director of Parks and Recreation for the City of El Cajon. At the March 23rd, 2021 council meeting, the council sent us with a directive for a staff report on a potential dollar days plan that was either gave you options to give us further direction of a 3-month plan a 6-month plan or a 12-month plan. So the way how we did hear you at the meeting and say that we want to restart our recreation programs. Just so the public does know, we did actually start our summer programs fully last summer, where we were at about 60% capacity, not where we wanted to be at all, but we did restart our programming. We were very excited about offering this concept of dollar a day, so hopefully it starts a bigger discussion of what we could offer. We have continued our in-person programming since last summer. So we did have a brief break in the spring where we offered virtual programming, but our community said that they want more in-person programming. That's why we came back last summer for camps, swim lessons, everything else. Beyond that, so our first plan this is really a 3-month plan, and this is just the summer 2021. So more going by seasons for 3, 6, or 12 months in this presentation. We want to offer $1 classes, and our plan would be to increase our capacity of our current programming and offer a different variety of classes depending on demand for them. The only exception is swim classes, and I'll get to a reason why in just a little bit. The approximate cost for summer would be about $220,000 is what we would anticipate. And we would look at it as 1 class per resident, so a resident couldn't sign up for $9 days classes. The reason is it kind of consider like a college classes where people would sign up for 9 and drop 5. We want to avoid that type of situation just so we can have the maximum amount of capacity where the classes will always be filled for the full 10 weeks if they're going to be a 10-week type of session. The classes would be our traditional full-scale summer programming that we haven't done since summer 2019, and that would be our youth sports leagues, so youth basketball league, indoor soccer, our sports clinics, not only our swim classes, but we would increase it to adult water aerobics, youth swim team, junior lifeguards. Our instructional classes would be a wide variety of our dance classes, including preschool, arts and crafts, including different types of ceramics, cooking classes, our early child education classes such as We Play and Little Tots, and then also we want to expand it to our contractual classes and even expand beyond that and look for a different variety of contractual classes. Currently, those would be like adult fall prevention, adult Zumba, adult fitness, karate, and some other martial arts. So I do have experience offering free or $1 swim classes. With a previous agency I worked with, we were first given a full grant to offer free swim classes or $1 to the community. And after the first class, more than half the community stopped showing up. And there's a variety of reasons for that. What we want to do is ask our community to invest $5 for the swim. And it costs us a lot more money to offer the swim in terms of lifeguard, swim instructor, the pool, balancing the pool, the heat, and everything. And this way, we feel that, given history with it, if people are invested up to that $5 mark, they will want to commit to it. What we also recognize with our pool is that there's an access barrier, meaning transportation. So we want to look at options. One would be busing kids from the valley floor. And we've done that. We have experience with that, getting swim grants, busing them from Johnson Elementary, Naranka Elementary. So we would have hot spots throughout the city where we would meet at the school district parking lots and have the school district buses, which we would pay for, and then bus the kids up in a COVID-friendly environment, such as something like that. We want to look at other aquatic facilities on the valley floor about potentially renting that space. In initial discussions, they may not be as friendly to swim classes, so we'd have to look at a different type of option, maybe a water safety class or something like that, but at least water safety introduction where the city would pay for it type of experience. Moving on to a 6-month plan. So this would include summer and fall 2021. It'd be similar type of programming as the summer. We only do a few more weeks into the fall. Once an outdoor pool environment gets too cold, usually swim lessons stop happening. People just don't want to do swim lessons in a cold environment. We usually end our aquatics programming by the end of October just because the outdoor weather is not friendly. Our pool is not a competition pool. It is a 3-foot to 4.5-foot deep true teaching pool, so we don't have that capacity for swim teams and water polo teams. It's just too shallow for them. In addition to that, we want to explore other options for the fall that we haven't had the opportunity to before. And I think we have some opportunity. And I'll talk a little bit about further opportunity in a future slide. But if we combine summer and fall, we approximate the cost to be about $380,000 as a full cost recovery model. Moving on to a 12-month cost or type of plan, this is summer, fall, winter, spring. If you see the pictures at the bottom, this is from the most recent of our dance and tumbling recital that we host every spring. When I say spring, I mean March, but our winter program is so successful is because most of our winter programs, they actually get featured in our dance and tumbling recital. Many of you have actually come to be participants and watch one of our dance and tumbling recitals. It's been going on for over 50 years in our city. There's a long tradition of it. So we know our winter program would be very successful in offering this and increasing our capacity with it. The spring is usually your busiest of the 3 fall, winter, spring sessions, just because people are feeling the weather getting warmer. We can reintroduce the aquatic classes in late April, May. That's why you see the full dollar amount of the 12 months at $715,000 if we want to go in that way. So what's included in this is that we want to not only offer the 10-week sessions at like $1 class with expanded capacity. Not all of our classes can be $1. So like a day camp, it can't be $1. But a dance class, a karate class, a swim class would be the $5. But those other ones would be the $1. But what we want to do in working with staff is offer these off-season, meaning the 2 or 3 week break in between. We want to offer $1 one-day classes also as part of dollar days. This would allow our staff to explore different options and see what we haven't tried before and see if there's interest in it. And we can hire contract instructors not only to offer that one-day class, but also train our staff on how to actually offer that and run that as a staff run so it's a lower cost to the city in the long run. There are some concerns, and we are already revving up for it, and I put in their staff capacity. Right now, we are actively hiring for swim instructors, so if we wanted to go this way, we would look for direction from council just so we can rev up our recruitment process as quickly as possible, because it does take a little time to recruit swim instructors. They have to go through an extended background as well as physical exam to actually start working with us. But also, we don't know the participation levels. If my own recreation background tells me not every class is going to be filled to capacity. There's going to be some really hot classes, and we're going to have to evaluate those and go, okay, can we increase the capacity in those and expand the offerings of those because people want to take those more. So we recognize that we'll have to be a little bit fluid this summer, and if you want to expand it to a 6-month or 12-month, look at that demand and change the way how we offer them for the further 3 or 6, 12-month type of offerings. And here we go. So summer 2021, just so if we just did the 3-month plan, it would be, we approximate $220,000. The summer and fall 2021, we approximate that cost to be $380,000. And you may wonder why summer is so high compared to summer and fall. Summer is when we just crank out a ton of classes. There's huge demand in summer for it. People are looking for things for their family to do. That's why we expect that higher demand in summer. If you look at the full year or the 12-month summer, fall, winter, spring, we're approximating that to be $715,000 total. Staff is looking for some direction where you would want us to go with this, and I will end my presentation now.
Thank you, Frank. Let me see if there's any questions for you from the council.
Hi. So where's the funding coming from?
I believe there will be a future presentation, I think the next presentation up or a couple of down, but from ARPA or the national plan to help cities, where this city is getting $34 million, and we may be able to use that money to expand offerings for services to the public, such as this opportunity.
Okay. And if we are subsidizing the rec classes, what is the maximum amount that we can afford to subsidize? Would it be a full year, the 780, or?
I believe if our city leadership, if you decide, our elected officials,
Right.
and following the ARPA plan or the aid for the recovery plan that's come from the federal government, we would be able to afford this.
Okay, and you said that's ARPA?
ARPA, I'm forgetting the ARPA. American Rescue Plan.
Okay.
Sorry.
And then, just as a comment, I think would be a really good idea if you had like $15 or $10 paint classes, you know, like the paint and wine classes,
Okay.
but we wouldn't offer wine. But, you know, for those 3-week periods in between,
Right.
I mean, I know I would take one every single time because I love those classes. So that might be something to offer for adults in the evening if we can, just a suggestion.
We've discussed that, and we're actually looking at an opportunity to have an instructor come in and teach those.
Thank you.
Graham, do you want to mention the financing part of this?
Certainly. So there's a couple options. One is the city council could rely on general fund reserves to fund the program. You could also assume that it would be lost revenue because you're opting not to take the revenue. Hence, the revenue is lost revenue. And under the American Rescue Plan, you can use those funds to recover lost revenue. And so that would be the way to do it. And I think it's well justified because you're trying to kickstart the community into being active again post-COVID. And that's the entire intent of those funds. And so I think those are eligible funds. Vince is going to talk about that a little bit. We have some money that we're recommending set apart for these types of community events. And I think it's probably important. I know Frank had very specific dollar amounts, but the reality is that's making some assumptions based on participation. Those lower participation would result in lower amounts, but if we had massive participation, I think we just need to mentally be ready. This could cost as much as $1.5 million, but that would mean there's a lot of people getting recreated in El Cajon. So that's the balancing act that you'd have to weigh for the dollar perspective.
All right, I appreciate that. More questions for Frank?
I have one for the city manager. As far as the federal money that would come through that would reimburse the general fund, I do have concerns. I don't want to take money out from police, fire, and paramedics, which are I think those are the core jobs of the city. I know this is a tough question, but what would you see as your best guess at the probability that would be use the federal money for this?
Well, you couldn't really use federal money for, let's say we wanted to hire 5 more police officers, or we'll use firefighters.
Oh, actually, I'm talking about to reimburse general fund for this program.
So
we go with the 750.
So we can still be made whole. So let's say, we're really getting into Mr. DiMaggio's agenda item. I'll give a little bit of a preview. So if the city lost $3 to $4 million in revenue last year because of COVID, we can be made whole for that, right? And then any other lost revenue, I'm anticipating property taxes may be down a little bit. We may still see a downslide in some sales tax. We can be made whole for that for the next 2 years. If the council wanted to waive business license fees, for example, that would be lost revenue. The city can be made whole for that. And this would be one of those things that the city can be made whole for them. So you can offer this. The beauty of the program is you can offer this program without impacting the long-term general fund reserve, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I don't know if that answered your question,
That
Mr.
does
Kendrick.
answer my question. Thank you.
Hi, Frank. Thanks for putting a lot of thought into this so far. What kind of classes have we been running since last summer?
So beyond swim classes. We've done swim team and water aerobics at the pool specifically. At our regular rec centers, we've offered a variety of different types of dance classes. What we haven't offered are gymnastics because the close contact required for that. We have offered youth basketball indoors, but it's been a clinic, and we do that under the camp guidelines, but we can't offer a youth basketball league. And we're planning on youth basketball leagues, indoor soccer league this summer. So we've transferred the leagues more to a clinic setup to where we can still have the spatial distancing.
And what's your best guess on the percent of participation in those classes that we did last year?
Not including aquatics, we're at about 70%.
70%.
70%.
Wow, that
But
surprises me.
aquatics is different. We had to do 1 or 2 person classes, so that significantly dropped.
You had a concern about $1 being kind of a no skin in the game kind of a approach.
For some lessons, yes.
Are there ways to mitigate that, such as you pay your regular registration fee up front, but you get it all back if you attend X percent of the classes or something?
We could do that, like incentivize it. It might be difficult in terms of like refunding the money back to them in terms of staff time, but we could do that too, yes.
I'm less concerned about staff time coming out of COVID than I am people's mental health.
I understand, sir.
And social health
Right.
and physical health. We'll have to just bear those costs as a staff. I'm kind of looking for a bigger idea out of this thing. And that might involve contract workers. I kind of like the one-day thing, but I saw a lot of focus on kids, and I'm really trying to get something for the seniors too. There's a lot of seniors who live in mobile home parks who have not been able to get out. Right. And this is our opportunity for something big to get them out. So that could be a field trip down to South Mission Beach where they have a picnic dinner at the beach, something they've never done before. It could be a day trip to San Diego Botanical Gardens.
Right.
And it doesn't take a lot of staff because you're contracting out.
Right.
I don't think those are really expensive, so I guess I'd like you to consider something bigger to include seniors more than just come to our facility.
We can do that, sir.
Okay. I'm probably leaning not towards subsidizing spring. I think a year from now, we're going to be kind of back into full form. I really hope so. So I think the natural demand will be there. So I kind of am looking at summer through the end of the year kind of thing. And that's a little bit less expensive. If I remember right, you told me it's about $600,000 for a year's worth of income from classes.
Correct.
So we're talking about subsidizing potentially $600,000. That would come from the $34 million if we say so, what I'm hearing, correct?
I believe so, sir, yes.
Well, that gives us
I would defer to Mr. DiMaggio or Mr. Mitchell.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. So we got a lot of room to play for from $34 million is what I'm saying. We're not taking away from anything else. So I like these one-day classes, computers for seniors. You go to a senior mobile home park community room and hire a contract worker to do some kind of
Tai Chi, anything, yes.
something, even a bingo with prizes or, something bigger than what we usually do, which is come to our facility. I'm trying to field trip it out, day trip it out.
We can make it mobile.
Yeah, that's what I'm interested in as well. Okay, that's all I got for now. Thanks.
Phil, did you want to say anything?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with all of my colleagues. Frank, thank you so much for the time you put into this. I agree with Mr. Goebel. Let's engage the seniors, but then also our children too. They've been cooped up in their rooms, not going to school and stuck in front of a screen. And so I think if we can engage those two populations, it's going to be beneficial. I also think summer is key to jumpstart it. Hopefully the demand will come back. and I'm seeing that obviously there's different lessons and different classes throughout the year, so we're going to miss out on a couple of some groups and some classes are going to miss out on the dollar days thing, but hopefully the demand will still be there and we'll have a sense of normalcy. So as long as we can have the funding question answered, which it sounds like it's been answered, and we can fund this, then I think it's a fantastic idea.
You know, one of the options we have is to set a dollar limit on this, and when it's gone, it's gone. You know, we could say, well, we're going to say $700,000, and if we run through that by September, we're done with dollar days.
Okay.
If we still have, if we get through December 31st and we've only used $600,000, we say, well, we're done by December 31st. We have that option too.
Quick
All right.
question. With that, Frank, with the set amount of funding, is that going to work with planning and spinning up and hiring and?
The reason why we brought it back so quickly and did a lot of behind-the-scenes work and meeting with staff as well as potential contractors is that we would want direction today, just so we can get ready for summer to increase our capacity should that be the case.
My only question was, I think you mentioned that swim lessons were going to be $5 a lesson.
That $5 for 10 classes total.
Really?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
That's the best deal in town, huh?
It would be, yes.
All right. Thanks, Frank. Angela, do we have any speaker cards on this? I
We
think
have
we're
no
done,
cards,
Frank.
sir.
Frank, I think we're finished, but thank you. No speaker cards?
That's correct, no
All right,
cards.
well, it's just an information item.
Well-
Unless anybody else had something else they wanted to say.
Mr. Mayor, it would be useful for planning purposes to know from the council at least the season part, and we can come back during agenda item, I guess 11, to talk maybe dollar amount, but at least from a seasonal perspective, are you thinking summer only? It would be good to get consensus on summer only, summer and fall, or summer, fall, and spring. That would be useful for staff right now.
I think summer, fall, but because I think you're right. I think we're going to be, after the fall, we're going to be back to a semblance of normal. But, Gary?
Yeah, I really like this program, especially the idea about the buses, because there are a lot of kids and seniors on the Valley floor that don't have access to transportation except if they were to get buses. And there's a lot of people down there that don't have a lot of money. And I think having these $1 and $5 classes lowers the barrier and kind of jumpstarts our society again, because everybody's used to being inside, and kids are going to be making more friends. The seniors are going to be making more friends. Everybody's going to just feeling a lot better, and it's very healthy for them, both physically and mentally. So I'm in agreement with the mayor as far as having it for summer and fall.
Let me ask you this, Graham. Is this fluid enough so that sometime before the fall had to ramp up, Frank could come back, give us a report on how well things are doing and how we're doing financially, and then make a decision about each season as a couple of months before it?
I think that's feasible, but kind of going back to Mr. Goebel's idea, if the council set a dollar amount, what we can do is figure out how to program that dollar amount and make it. I think with the $700,000, that would easily get us through summer and fall. But I think there is some value of coming back and kind of giving a report and some additional direction. But having a dollar amount from a planning perspective is useful to staff. So we can do that. But it'd be good just to know if fall's on the table, we can start planning for some fall stuff.
So if we were to set the dollar amount at $700,000 and then you wanted to come back and ask for additional funding, would that
Yes,
give you enough?
That would be useful.
How does everybody feel about that? Steve?
So the dates, fall is from what calendar date to what calendar date?
Mr. Carson's coming down right now.
And winter is from what calendar date to what calendar date?
So fall is the last week in September to the first week in December, and then winter starts the second week in January all the way through mid-March of next year.
Okay. Is there, and there's a reason why you don't do the month of December, because it's the holidays.
Right.
Are there big idea opportunities for the holidays?
Right. So we would look at those $1 class type of options. So potentially the adult painting. We could do the day trips. We have staff experience working with day trippers, so we contract that out. But definitely we could do one-off craft days, but all of those experiences.
I'm thinking a holiday craft one-day thing. I'm thinking a day trip for a holiday thing. For seniors, this could be, a big deal. So I guess I'm going to make a proposal, and that would be $700,000 through December 31st, whichever comes first. If $700,000 is used up first, that's it. If December 31st comes first and we're still got money left on the table, we're done. So $700,000 or December 31st, whichever comes first. What do you think of that?
We were going to come back in the fall and reevaluate, right?
Of course.
So
Yeah,
if it's going gangbusters and everything's going really well and we've got a big participation, we could ask for more money and extend it through the end of December.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, but I think what
Absolutely.
staff's asking for right now is a baseline to start with. So I
Right.
think what Steve is recommending, we give them a baseline of $700,000 for the summer and fall, and then if it's a popular program, the staff can come back and ask for an extension or some more money.
Yeah, they could say, we want $200,000 more to get us through December 31st.
Got it.
All right, you don't need a vote on that, right? You've got the consensus?
We heard consensus. We can move with that. Bill?
Perfect.
I want to say this really is a gift to the children and the seniors in the city of El Cajon, and it's important to me that we make this gift as high as financially possible. I think it'll help a lot of people that really need some help right now. So, and I want to thank Councilmember Goebel for coming up with this idea.
idea.
It's really great.
Imagine if Congress could get things done like that. That'd be All right. So the next administrative report is item 10, and it is the 2020 General Plan Annual Progress Report. Staff, tell us about this, please.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm going to introduce Alfonso Camacho, who is one of our planners. He will be giving us the report today.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. State Government Code, Section 65400, requires planning agencies to provide an annual report to their legislative body, the Office of Planning and Research, and the Department of Housing and Community Development by April of each year on the status of their general plan and their progress in the implementation through the previous calendar year. Technical difficulties on this one. It's going to take me 1 second to get this going here. There you go. Thank you. The report must also detail the progress in meeting the city's share of regional housing and addressing efforts toward removing governmental constraints to the maintenance, improvement, and development of housing. Furthermore, in accordance with SANDAG Board Policy Number 33, local jurisdictions are requested to submit the same housing element annual report information to SANDAG. Policy Number 33 defines the basis for awarding discretionary grants from SANDAG. State law requires local governments to keep their general plans current and internally consistent. There is no specific requirement that a local government update its general plan on a particular timeline, with the exception of the housing element. Staff has included highlights, introduction to the annual report that emphasizes activities accomplished in 2020 with respect to the general plan implementation. These include current and new development projects, number of housing developments and programs, city roadways, parks and recreation, and public safety, just to name a few. The housing permit report reflects the city's cumulative progress in implementing the general plan since its adoption of the respective elements, and it's organized to correspond with its objectives and policies. The housing element annual report component, it's formatted differently than the report for the rest of the general plan because HCD has specific form requirements used for reporting progress in implementing housing element programs. Therefore, staff is available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, council, any questions or comments? No. Angela, any speaker cards on this item?
We do not have cards, sir.
Okay. Any more discussion? Thank you, sir. I appreciate the word. Any more discussion on this item, or somebody would like to make a motion?
I'll move that we accept the annual progress report required by the state of California and that we direct staff to forward the report to the governor's office and SANDAG and the other agencies as appropriate.
Your vote, please. Pardon, Mr. Kendrick, can I please have your vote? Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Okay. The next administrative report, item 11, is the summary of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. And if our city manager or assistant city manager, Vince DiMaggio, would tell us about this, I'd appreciate it.
Great, thank you, Mayor, members of council. It's good to be back. This is the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. As you all recall, it was signed into law by President Biden on March 11th, 2021. And one of the key features that we're here to talk about today is the $350 billion included for financial assistance to states and local governments. And we'll go through a couple of things. What I want to do is I want to go through a couple of subject areas that the plan, the Act allows us to fund. And so the first one was mentioned already, but this is very important. The principal purpose of the Act is for municipalities to be made whole. So staff has already projected that in the case of our budget, our fiscal 2020-2021 anticipated revenue will be down $3.7 million. And as Mr. Mitchell said earlier, we don't know what the next 2 years will bring us. So we're proposing to hold back about $10 million of the $34 million that we'll receive to subsidize budget, the anticipated lost taxed revenue. So that will be one area that we would recommend that we hold back because of lost revenue. The second area would be a proposal to do a second round of business grants. You'll recall in July 2020, staff received CARES Act money. This was the first stimulus type money that was received, and we received $2.7 million. We distributed that by way of grants to local businesses. Staff suggests that the council consider using up to $5 million in Rescue Act funds for a second round of business grants. And I should point out that we've been looking at different criteria, and I'd be happy to get into that with you on what the work we've done so far. This has proven to be a very popular program. In the last month, I would say we received several phone calls at the city manager's office asking whether there was going to be another round. That came from businesses that received funding, businesses that were interested in receiving funding but didn't. So it has some popularity and some anticipation that it could return. So we're suggesting council consider this as a possible way of utilizing some Rescue Act funds. The third is a much larger initiative centered around economic development, and it's a two-prong approach. The first prong would deal with large-scale businesses. What we would do is propose to retain a consultant to conduct a market analysis on what specific large-scale businesses we can attract here in El Cajon. And that would be based on demographics, land availability, things like that a consultant is better able to look at than staff is. And then we would look at trying to engage those businesses and encourage them. And how would we use money to would we participate in land acquisition with them? Would we participate in land development costs with them? What would we do to really kind of rope in a large-scale business? The second prong that we're suggesting is to assist smaller startup businesses and business expansions. These are businesses that may already be in the city that are looking to expand, and we would propose to assist with on-site and off-site improvements of smaller startup businesses or business expansions, facade grants so that their exterior looks good, or new signage, anything that would help small businesses expand or continue operation beyond just the business grant program. So those are two ideas on a larger multi-year economic development program. The fourth, obviously, is capital improvements. As you know, because we don't have development impact fees, our capital improvements are funded entirely through grants coming from local government agencies like SANDAG. Sometimes we'll program some general fund money in there, but generally speaking, this is an opportunity to use Rescue Act money to fund sewer, water, road, and broadband infrastructure. It's one of the keys of the act was to fund these things, these infrastructure improvements. So this can be considered limited because it takes such a long time to bring a capital improvement project forward. It has to be planned, designed, RFP, the whole process. Because we're limited, that all the funds have to be expended by September 2024, we need to be careful in what we select as part of a capital improvement. So it's something that we can get done, and it's something that's necessary to get done. But we have to be cognizant of the timeline that we have here. The fifth is something that implements a recent council goal that was discussed, is the creation of a narcotics enforcement unit. This is being brought to you because, as I said, it implements the council goal at the recent goal-setting session. It would require a much more detailed presentation than here, done by the police chief to talk about all of the nuances required to bring this type of unit forward. The council also needs to be cognizant of the fact that when the funding runs out, that there would have to be some other way to budget for this unit unless the unit goes away. So at the end of 2024, the general fund would have to step in and assume the cost of the unit when the federal funds are exhausted. So that's something to consider, and this is, as I said, being brought forward to implement a council goal. And then 6 is improvements to various city facilities. This would be facilities such as recreation centers. We have some improvements that are necessary there. Fire stations, we're looking at fire station improvements right now. The Public Works Operation Yard on Vernon requires improvements, and certainly ideas to improve the appearance and operation of City Hall has been included in this. So again, these are large-scale projects, and they're limited only because of the time deadline of September 2024. So if the council wants us to program some of these improvements, we would have to return to you with the ones that would most likely and most efficiently be done using several $1 million of Relief Act money in the time allotted to us to do that. So it's something to consider. And, of course, number 7 goes along the lines of what you just heard from Mr. Carson. This would be subsidizing post-COVID activities such as the recreation fees, the dollar days, business licenses. It would also be able to be used with something we haven't discussed yet, which is subsidizing Live Nation concerts. And getting back to the Live Nation discussion, as you know, the acts cost a certain amount of money. So the more popular the acts that we want to bring in here, the more expensive they are. We always thought that as the program gained momentum, that we would be able to put money back into the program and subsidize some acts. So we also had subsidy money coming from waste management, which was meant to subsidize some larger acts. We could use these funds to subsidize larger acts, and when everyone is allowed to have full capacity, we can actually put on a show with a very well-known artist that costs a lot of money, and we could subsidize that concert. So any number of post-COVID activities that are mentioned there on the screen, Live Nation, business license fees, recreation fees, or any others that you can think of, we would be glad to bring back a program that talks about that. So this is just some ideas. It's meant to be a council discussion amongst yourselves, and staff is available to answer questions.
Thanks, Vince. Council members, any questions for Vince right off?
I do.
Sure.
Okay, so if we look at each of the items, do you have approximate cost for each?
Yes, the
case?
city manager and I talked about this, and I would go through it with you. Let me back up a second, and I will go through it for you. And again, I just want to emphasize these are just suggestions. It's well within your purview to set different dollar amounts. Again, the lost revenue, we think about $10 million.
Okay.
Business grant, I mentioned we're thinking $5 million for something along those lines. We're also thinking, I did mention in my presentation that we're thinking about something that a little bit different than we did last time. As you'll recall, last time we separated into essential businesses, non-essential businesses, and restaurants. We've been toying with the idea, if council wants us to look into this, of something that focuses on maximizing employment. So giving businesses a certain lower sum of money, but then tranches of money for every employee they hire. Now, doing that can employ almost up to 500 people if all the businesses took advantage of it, and the number was 5 million. And I have those numbers if you want me to go into it, or that could be part of a different presentation at a different meeting. But anyway, we were thinking about 5 million for that. For number 3, we're thinking approximately $4 million over the next 3 years. For number 4, capital improvements, we think about $8.5 million. Most of that I would guess would be in street improvements and different things that would help the infrastructure. The creation of the narcotics unit, we're thinking $1.5 million. And improvements to various city facilities, we're thinking about $4 million. And then for other community programs, we're thinking about $1 million. So if you add those numbers up, you should get $34 million.
And going back to number 5, creation of the narcotics enforcement unit, if we figure it's going to run about $1.5 million to bring that on board, is that something that we can reliably sustain or, support once the money is gone from ARPA?
Well, I would actually recommend what we would do is we would hire up, utilizing these funds to augment what we currently have. We have natural rates of attrition as people retire out or people leave. So as we got near the end of the use of these funds, we would just absorb those employees into the organization, and then go back. Unless the program was extremely successful and there was budgetary capacity, then you may want to continue it or do something different. But I think there's a way to increase the staffing without, in 3 years from now, laying off 5 individuals. That would not be the intention.
Because I think this is something that we definitely need to keep on an ongoing basis. And let's see what else. I think that's it for me, sorry.
More questions? Phil?
Thank you. With regard to the replacement of lost revenue, so it's my understanding we can replace lost revenue up to in 2024 with whatever amount up that we designate. Is that how I understand it?
That's correct. If
Okay.
I'm understanding your question correctly,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
I mean, that's the primary purpose of the act. So
Right.
if, for example, we're 3.7 this fiscal year,
Right.
and let's say the economy didn't recover and we're 4 million next year, we go back and we fill in that gap with the 4 million.
Got it. Okay. Fantastic. A comment on, economic development incentives and working with businesses, attracting them. It seems as though that, are we going to try and come up with hard line, this is what we're doing, or can we be nimble working with different businesses that the consultant comes up with and speaking with them and saying, instead of saying we're only going to pay for land development, the business says, well, where we're lacking is in this area. Can we form that way of working with businesses?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, that is absolutely an excellent point. What we want to do is we want to find out, we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And in the case of large-scale businesses, I think it's helpful to retain a consultant to tell us what our demographics can support and then what those businesses need to be lured in.
Right.
And I'll give you another example. We have a piece of property that we're all waiting on the Kaiser property to develop.
Yep.
This is an idea. What would it take for Kaiser to move up their schedule, to develop that parcel quicker?
Yeah.
That maybe their schedule is what their schedule is, no matter what amount of money. But there are other businesses out there that we feel that can be attracted. Look at locations, look at needs, look at how that money can participate with them. So absolutely, yes.
Okay. And a side note, the whole point of economic development is to increase our tax base, and that's ensuring that these programs that we enact continue on,
Right.
without having to raise taxes on the public.
Right.
This is a way to increase our revenue for the city without having to raise taxes on our citizens. So when we talk about economic development, we want to bring in businesses to increase our tax base without directly taxing our citizens. So I love that idea. With regard to number 4, the capital improvements, is there a way we can, and I was discussing this with the city manager, but I think it deserves an open discussion, put solar on our buildings to reduce and we can finance that through this act of funding, and then it'll lower our costs, maybe paying for, let's say, the narcotics unit moving forward. Is that something we can use funding for?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's
The city
fantastic.
manager and I have talked about that, and where we feel that where solar can be accommodated on buildings, public buildings, it should, because it's going to lower costs, and that cost is going to go back into the budget to come out into other things, other programs.
Right.
So that's a good point. And I would also say in capital improvements that we would talk to the public works director, come up with a series of plans and projects that can be accommodated within the time allotted, and then return to council with that programming.
Okay, that's fantastic. And this is number 6, improvements to various facilities. I know we just got done with improving the Magnolia. We still have a lot of property on the front there, and I don't think there's a business in California that isn't rethinking the outdoor method. And I don't know if this is the time to maybe look at the Magnolia and that beautiful property as some kind of an outdoor dining. I know Santee just brought in 10 fish to Santee Lakes, and that's the talk of the town, and they're going to be making revenue off of it for decades after that. So I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that could be baked into it, but that's a beautiful property right on Main Street, outdoor. Just an idea to throw out there. And that's all my questions and comments for now. Thank you.
I guess I'll have questions now and comments after public comment, if there is public comment. There is public comment. Okay, so I'll say my comments after that. Here's my questions. What if we get to, let me just back up. To your point, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know if these 7 points are all the right points. We don't know if we should have number 8, number 9, and number 10 on here. So my point is, gee, it would be nice to hear from the community so that we don't have a blind spot. Oh, you folks missed this. Oh, how could you not think of this? We've done surveys with different programs in the city. My question is, do we have those contacts? How many contacts are there? And what kind of results have we gotten from surveys?
Mr. Goebel, we have sort of two recent experiences. One is through a very traditional way of contacting people through a workshop and soliciting information through a workshop format. We did that for the housing element. Now, maybe people aren't excited about housing elements, but just so you know, we held 5 different workshops. We averaged 9.2 individuals at each of those. The maximum we had was 14 people show up, and the minimum was 2. So, I mean, from a workshop perspective, if the goal is to solicit feedback from the community, I'd probably not recommend a workshop system. Our other way of reaching out is through a lot of our social media, our app, in the form of a survey. And we recently did that. As you recall, we surveyed, or Ms. Diaz, through our Smart Cities program, surveyed the community. We reached out through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, our app, the school district, East County Economic Development Corporation, the Chamber of Commerce, and we did a press release. From all that effort, we received 1,182 survey results. For a community this size, statistically, that's pretty good. We also have 8,000 emails collected through rec programs and other means, so that would be another way that we could get the word out, is some direct mailing or direct emailing to those individuals. So those are our surveying experiences that we've had.
Okay, thank you. When we get to, for instance, if we take $10 million for item 1, what if we get to year 3 and we haven't used, we don't require it? Are we in a panic that, oh my gosh, how are we going to spend $2 million before September? Have you thought of that?
Yes, we've thought of that, and I think our finance director and his department does an amazing job projecting, quarter year, mid-year. So I think we'll have a very good idea about where we stand. In fact, we meet with our sales tax consultant all the time, so we're going to know where the barometer is before we get to the mid-year, and so we'll know what we think we have to reserve for any sort of budget shortfall.
Okay, sounds good. Let me go on to another question. Do you think you have the staff currently to manage potentially a lot of these new projects?
Well, I think if you talk about infrastructure, we could easily prepare the plan. Those are typically done by contractors. So the capital improvements and the infrastructure projects, yes. The business grants were done out of the city manager's office. I think we could still handle those. Improvements to city facilities, again, that would tax our public works department a little bit. But again, the work is mostly going to be done by contractors. So I think we have the capacity. It's just a matter of returning to the council with the projects per your direction and talking about how they get accomplished.
Sounds good. Let me go on to grants. I believe I heard something about 120 businesses got grants before. Does that ring a bell?
That sounds about right.
Ballpark-ish.
Yeah, that's ballpark. Yeah.
Give or take 25.
Sure.
So I remember one of the points was there were some applicants who didn't have business licenses and they weren't qualified. My question is, have we seen the number of business licenses increase since then?
Yes. Yes, business licenses have gone up. People who did not receive the funding, I can virtually guarantee you have business licenses now.
Okay. My question on... I think I'm good. That's all my questions. Thank you. Gary?
Quick question about the police program. It seems like the trend is to not prosecute these minor narcotics types crimes. You think we're at cross purposes?
And that's the decision to prosecute obviously comes at a different level of government than is in this room. We brought it forth as part of this program because it represents a goal set by the city council. I would leave that as your question is more of a policy question amongst the five of you as to whether or not this is a program that should be funded, given the likelihood of whether prosecution would occur or not.
So we're not committing to anything specific right now. You're going to come back and give us a plan, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So there's time to talk about these ideas, and like Steve said, to bring in some other ideas that perhaps we hadn't thought of yet.
Right.
Okay. Well, that's important. That's my questions. Yes, Michelle.
Just to piggyback on what the mayor said about the enforcement, the narcotic enforcement, we're not talking about just the guy that's busted with a couple baggies of heroin. We're talking about the dealers. Is that more what we're looking at?
Yes, that was what was discussed at the council goal setting session, and so that is what staff would be focused on if you directed that we move farther with this goal.
Okay, because I see it as we need to crack down on the dealers, then you wouldn't have as many, just minor offenses. And then would that also kind of tie in with on more serious drugs like heroin, crack, crystal, versus just pot? Because pot's legal. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of wanted to know if we're headed more towards the harder stuff.
Yeah, again, if the city council directs us to pursue, I think that's number 5, if the city council were to direct us to pursue that, in the next couple of meetings you would see a more detailed presentation by the police chief to answer those questions.
Okay,
yeah,
thank
I think
you.
that's what we need, yeah. Okay, let me see. Angela, do we receive any speak cards on this item?
Yes, we have one speaker, and it's Greg Hendricks.
Hey, Greg, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Even afternoon, it almost looks like morning, but afternoon, everybody. Glad that you're here, Mr. Mayor, the council, and all the city officials that are here. I really love the idea of all the things that were pitched here. I think we are missing something, a certain component that I think we can really look at and bring to the table, and I think this will be something that will be good for our community. And I'd like to actually offer this as a suggestion and a proposal. It's called the At Hope Community Initiative. That's what we had named it. And it stems to initially infuse resource into the next generation. All the things you just described here, broadband, infrastructure, narcotics enforcement units, city facilities, post-COVID activities, economic development, capital improvements, all those things, there's one thread that's going to run through all those programs, and that's tech. Tech right now is moving forward faster than any of us are growing day by day. It's rapidly moving for everybody else in this room as well. And we would all agree that tech is the wave of the future. And we all would agree that our children are the wave of the future. I love what Councilmember Ortiz brought up about our next generation. So I've come with a proposal and an idea what I think we could really highly consider, especially now. One thing about progression, if you ever know anything about progression stems from 3 things: need, resource, and opportunity. We have a need right now to improve our city, to improve our future, to improve our next generation. We have the resource because of the $34 million that's sitting there. And we have the opportunity to do it in this lifetime. The beauty of it is this: all of you at some point will be gone, but there's going to be the next generation to inherit the opportunity to pick up and make our city better and continue what El Cajon could and should be moving forward. So this At Hope Community Initiative is essentially having to do with School of Technology. This is a school called Bethel School of Technology. And essentially what it is you change the narrative of what it can look like for the future. And so these communities that are served obviously are multilingual communities, low-income communities, and outgoing high school communities. So I would like for a chunk of this resource to be infused into the local high schools here. I believe we have about 11 high schools in our district and our community here, and so I would like to focus on that. And the initiative essentially is this. If you know anything about what's going on with tech, there are currently 1 million unfulfilled tech jobs in all of the United States. And all the projects we're talking about, you're going to need tech to get it done, moving it forward, whether you like it or not, or whether it's just an inevitable thing. And the talent gap is too wide and to be filled by computer science graduates from traditional four-year colleges. What you're seeing now is they're going through a program, they're getting accredited. They don't even graduate like with a degree, but they come out with current job skills, so they get immediately infused because tech moves so fast and it changes rapidly day by day. Okay, so this program would offer an opportunity for high school students to go through a 9-month program. Now, to go through a 9-month program is about $16,000. If you do an average of an educational, it's about $150,000. And like myself, you come out in debt when you come out of college, and you don't have any jobs. And they have a 4-year college graduate degree, and they're working somewhere that has nothing to do with their degree, waiting for a job. The beauty of this program is that they get the on-demand job skills in 9 months, and this school has opportunity for them to be infused into the workforce right away. But how I think it would help our city is this. If we're able to infuse some resource into our young people by offering scholarships for them as high school seniors to continually move forward with their college education, number one. Number two, to obtain the skills that are moving to the wave of the future, these young students can also come back and help serve our city, building broadband infrastructure, building apps, building better communication for our city officials, better communication between the community and the city officials. We're infusing the resource, and you're seeing long-term generation over the course. I'm lobbying for a 5-year plan here. I'm a visionary. I think big. I'm a big thinker. And I'm thinking, okay, in 5 years, how do we not only infuse money to the next generation, but how do we take that resource, and that resource makes other resource, so we're not continually asking for government aid. The other thing I want you to know is it's a 9-month-long program. It's a licensed and accredited program by the California Bureau of Private Post-Secondary Education, which is the BPPE. It's fully remote, and it's a hybrid program, so they don't even have to go to a physical building. Everything can be done online, so they can do it in their home. This school has about 800-plus students since 2018. There's 37% female student population in this school. And when they graduate, the goal is not only would they come back and serve their city, but we would also ask them, as the part of the city investing in them, that when they graduate, most of the jobs that they get coming out, the average starting job for a young person coming out of this school is $60,000. So they're starting base at $60,000. The city is setting them up to make money. But in return, we ask that they would fund a student maybe from their school that they graduated from. Hey, fund a student that's coming behind you, so the program becomes ongoing. The jump start is through the city to pour resource into it, and then at that point, it would be able to essentially fund itself. The tuition, again, for this school is about $15,900. I just rounded it up to $16,000. And so in doing so, here's the thing that I really love about this opportunity. They're connected to Google. They're connected to Apple. This school is connected to Facebook, Salesforce, Microsoft, Grubhub. All these services that we use on a daily basis, we should be taking advantage of our young talent that are in these schools, because like Mr. Ortiz said, a lot of them sat at home and play video games, and a lot of them are interested in tech, but they have no guidance. The opportunity that we have right now is we have a resource to get behind them and say, hey, we have an option for you out of high school to not only acquire the skills that our city needs, but acquire a work skill that is going to essentially is going on right now, modern day, modern time.
Greg, interrupt you for a second. Time is up, but
oh, sorry.
No, it's okay, because I think you're going to be able to finish, because there's probably going to be some questions amongst the city council.
Okay.
But Council, you have some questions?
What else did you have to say?
Yeah, I have one more.
Now we're covered.
Just can I go on? Thank you for that. It's about an 80% graduate rate from this school. 80% of the students find work. The average salary again is about $60,000, and then these are the hiring companies are IBM, Dell, DoorDash, Grubhub, Salesforce, etc. But I want you. I think what I'm asking for essentially is this. I did the breakdown here. You said $5 million for business grants, $4 million. This is all proposal, obviously. But I'm requesting. I think it would be beneficial to pump at least $3 million over the course of 5 years. And here's what: if you break it down, $3 million divided by 16,000 is about 187.5, which is 187 scholarships divided by 11 schools. That's 17 scholarships per high school in our community. 17 divided by 5, that's about 3 opportunities every year for the next 5 years. So you're pumping resource into our next generation. They're getting an opportunity to acquire real-time work skills, future work skills, to help with the development of our city and our community. And on top of that, when they come out, that they have the means to actually pay for maybe a student that comes behind them. So at that point, once the money dries up and the city is no longer funding this, that it will be an ongoing thing, and we have jump-started it with an opportunity and $34 million in the bank. So, questions?
More questions?
Yes. What is the name of the project again?
We're calling it the At Hope Community Initiative. At Hope. Yep. Community Initiative.
Community Initiative.
The school that this school is accredited through is William Jessup University. It's based in Sacramento, California. It's regionally accredited through the Western Association of Schools and Colleges. So it's an accredited school.
And would this be, sorry.
That's okay.
Would this be open to all students?
Yes.
All
students, all walks of life, and I love the focus would be on the students, but at some point I would like to even offer this to those in the community, because there's people here, maybe there's someone that's elderly that has a coding heart for tech, but they don't know where to get started. And I love this program because you don't have to have any tech experience. Mm-hmm. No tech background, nothing about a computer, but you're going to learn this in 9 months.
And really, can it be relatable to, say, the STEM initiative, where everybody's trying to get kids into STEM, science, technology,
education, math?
Yeah.
Yes, it could be. It could be. But I think this opportunity with our resource that had just come in is better because you can immediately jumpstart it right away.
Okay, and have you looked into partnerships with big corporations like Qualcomm, General Atomics, some of the other big aerospace companies here in town, or biotech companies that can utilize tech like that? Like I know at General Atomics, help desk is outsourced, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But we do have a lot of technology or technicians. I should say General Atomics has a lot of technicians in-house. Mm-hmm. Is that something that we can be partnered with? If we were to go forward with this, and so the city would subsidize a certain amount of money, but yet we're also getting some funding from some of these other large corporations.
Yeah. The goal is that if we jumpstart it here, all of us in this room have contacts in some degree with these corporations. We would be able to leverage those contacts for these students to have an entry point. So, for example, if we have a contact with Qualcomm, then we would be able to point the student from Monta Vista to go over here and intern for a certain amount of time, or intern with the city. That's the whole basis of it, is that they have access while they're getting the teaching. Mm-hmm. They have access to the opportunity with the intention and hope that they would come back and serve the community.
Well, having 3 grandkids that, parents can't afford to send them to regular college, this is an excellent idea.
Thank you.
More questions? Well, Greg, Graham, you think you could connect with Greg and get the details on this so you can present it to council?
If that's the direction from the council, I'll need to hear that direction.
Well, I'd like to see it fleshed out a little bit and see. Anybody disagree?
I have actually copies for everybody, but I didn't know what we're doing. If you're handing and you're touching, so I didn't want to overstep any boundaries here. But I do actually have physical copies, and then I can email you also a PDF that I have available for you.
Do you certification that the paper is disease-free?
Oh yeah, you know
okay.
it. I prayed over it. Trust me.
Oh, this is, by the way, this is Pastor Greg Hendricks from The Rock. So,
Yeah.
Greg, what a great idea. Thank you for bringing the idea to us. Staff's going to work with you to get it presented to the council, and it'll be part of the process.
Okay. Thank you.
Matt, thank you very much for thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. So that is there any other public comment?
No more comments, sir.
Okay, so it's back with City Council. I think we've fleshed it out pretty well. Would somebody like to make a motion? Oh, you got more? Steve, please.
Okay, now I'm going to give you my comments. You heard my concern about $10 million for the holdback, and we've got $2 million left, and it's March of 2024. How do we spend $2 million? So if we kind of start with that number, we don't want to be in that position. You heard my concern about we got to have the staff even to manage contractors, and if you need more staff, certainly this money could do that on a whatever you decide basis. On the grant issue, I'd like to suggest staff consider something to stretch it a little bit further. Rather than just give people money, I'd like to try to stimulate things a little bit more than just here's some money. So here's an idea that I'd like for you to think about. If we had an El Cajon Value Day or something, and let's say throughout the citywide, throughout retailers in El Cajon, if they were to offer, for instance, a $50 gift certificate, a $25 gift, $100, whatever it is, the customer pays half and this fund will pay half. And here's what I'm thinking, and this is any retailer in town. So I don't kind of know the numbers yet, but here's the concept. Number one, it gets people into retail stores. We want that. Number two, it allows the business to get jump-started because they're only putting out half of what's coming into the register. Number three, we probably will get some sales tax back out of this. Number four, I think this is a way to multiply the money more and stimulate the economy, stimulate visits to stores. We want to see people back at the mall. We want to see people filling restaurants. You know, when some of these restaurants around town buy a $50 gift card and get a $20 one for later on, most people, I think, buy it. I buy it for myself because I know I'm going to come back here again someday, so I'll buy the $50 knowing I'll use the $20 some other time. Something like that to consider fleshing out. Is there an opportunity there to stretch that out? Number three, the economic development. I like the consultant idea because we may build a facility or build out an existing facility that could be a call center, a training center, an incubator center, a coding center that we get rental income from. But they didn't have the money to build. So that's a thought there on the economic development side. The CIP, the Capital Improvement Program, I think there's value there because we're doing preventive maintenance rather than chasing deferred maintenance. So we're getting ahead of the game in some things. Number five, the narcotics thing. My concern, somewhat shared with the mayor here, is so what kind of, if we do this enforcement, what kind of penalties will these people incur? If the penalty they incur is essentially book and release, we got to hear more from the people who know more than I do. Is that our desired outcome? Is that going to move the needle? No pun intended on that one. I got my concern addressed about the ongoing costs. Number six, improvement to city facilities. I like Mr. Ortiz's idea. Boy, that front lawn in front of the Magnolia is a great outdoor deck. And maybe there's still another restaurant that wants to come in town and want to locate next door to a theater venue. I do think it's a great idea to subsidize Live Nation. That is an economic development move. We get people from outside the city into the city, and that's what we want for the Magnolia, because once you try it, you like it. Nobody can eat just one. You can't just attend one concert at the Magnolia. You're going to come back again and again. So I think the subsidy is a good idea for that reason. Number 7, the post-COVID, I'd like to take a look at the business license fees to even the cost of this, to say, I'll tell you what, we're going to do a BOGO on business license fees. Rather than just give you a free year for 2022, tell you what, you buy 2022 and we'll give you 2023 free. It helps stretch the business money a little bit further, and I'd like to know the cost of that going forward. The improvement to city facilities also improves employee morale, and that retains employees. When you work in something that has more than a 70s look to it. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Just one last comment. I mean, these are great suggestions. I'm confident in all of them that we're using this money effectively. And I guess my final comment would be I'd like to see, like Mr. Goebel said, the lasting effects of this money. So if there's a way we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, or like putting solar so we can see that money work for us in the future. So we're padding our general fund to not have to increase fees for our rec center in 2-3 years. So we're not having to lay off police, fire. I don't want to, for lack of a better example, buy everyone in the city iPads and then next year it's all gone. We have an opportunity to invest in the city and its citizens and set up the city financially for a long time with this money. And that would be my goal with the use of this funding. So
I would like to utilize the survey. If we have 8,000 email addresses and you got 1,800 responses to a tech item, I think you'll do just as well on how do we spend $34 million. I think that will help us eliminate some blind spots. We potentially heard about a blind spot that Pastor Hendricks might have filled for us. I don't know. We have to flesh that out. But that's an example of, there's something we didn't think of. Tech and the kids in the future. So I like the survey idea. Gary?
Okay. I think we've made all our comments. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you need to make a motion on this. I think we got some direction and some feedback. I think what we're going to do is we heard a lot of things that you want to come back, which we plan to do anyway. We're one of the first cities in the county to present this agenda item, so some of those blind spots may be uncovered as other cities bring forward their ideas. We'll be paying attention to that as well. Surveys are pretty... if we get it wrong, we get it wrong. So we'll probably bring a draft survey back to the council for your input. I think that would be something important. And we'll also bring back the notion of some sort of a scholarship program as well.
Sounds good. All right. We're going to take a short 5-minute break, and then we will be back for the update on the homeless programs. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for your patience. We'll continue at this point. If you could take your seats. All right, up at number 12 is the update on the homeless program. Staff, can you tell about this?
Well, Mr. Mayor, this is Mr. Mitchell's item, and he's approaching momentarily.
Okay.
I was already working on the next week's staff report talking to Mr. Hendricks, so. Okay, cool, it's up. All right, this is really intended to be kind of an update of the 2020 homeless programs that the city has been providing. We are, because our money and our counts. We're working with different people all the time. It will spill a little bit into 2021, but for the most part, these are activities for 2020. As part of this, I'm going to provide a review of the different programs, the 9 different programs that we currently offer. I'll highlight the results, talk about some of our analysis or our assessment of how well these programs are working, and then I'll end with 5 or 4 different recommendations. Just so you know, the City of El Cajon is committed or allocated a little over $1.5 million to dealing with homelessness in 2020. It's pretty astronomical. On a per capita basis, it's pretty high. I haven't looked at what other cities are currently spending, but I do know it's one of the higher amounts on a per capita basis, and I'm really proud of the work that we've done and of the partners that we currently have. So really quickly, some of our programs that we include is we have a homeless outreach program that's through really our housing. We colloquially call them a housing navigator. Karina Hernandez is that housing navigator. She's here in the audience today. She started working with this program when she worked for Crisis House. As the council knows, we've allocated funding now to Home Start that runs this program. And with this program, in addition to her work, we've also allocated $200,000 in flexible money that can be used for housing assistance. So if someone needs first rent assistance or first month's rent or utility assistance or moving assistance, this money has a lot of flexibility that she can utilize to get people into homes. And it's one of our most successful programs over the years. This last year, 2020, has been a bit of a struggle in getting folks into housing. COVID has had 2 big impacts. One impacts on just the housing capacity, housing ability. There's just not a lot of housing available. 2, folks that are moving into places need a stream of income, and there has been a lack of income as well. So those 2 things have hindered the work, and so when you see the numbers, they don't look as good as they have in 2019. I don't think that's a reflection of the work of Home Start, but it's really a reflection of the pandemic. We also fund a program, and we utilize the Salvation Army, and the program's called A Way Back Home, and as you recall, this program helps reunite individuals with loved ones or family members outside of the region. So if someone is sort of stuck here in El Cajon and they're from Louisiana, we'll help them get back to Louisiana after we ensure that they have a safe place to go, that they have the infrastructure that will support them in that location. We're not just putting folks on buses and shipping them out. There's a big process that goes into it, and the Salvation Army does a tremendous job in ensuring that these folks have that support and love where they're going. We also work with ECTLC to offer emergency shelter. We've been very busy this year. We've offered a lot of shelter space to folks, and we'll get into that in a second on the impact. We also work with Interfaith Shelter Network. This is a program that helps typically homeless families rotate from church setting to church setting, and they stay there for periods of time. Again, because of COVID, they've not been able to do that. They've been able to stay in motels, though, through this program, and we've had some success there. This year, we started offering the Motel Voucher Program. It's a program that's utilized or operated by Home Start, but our police department utilizes it heavily as well as a way as they see or encounter homeless individuals on the street. It's a way to help them get off the street and people that are in crisis out of crisis. I have some critiques of this program, and I'll be bringing those up in just a moment. We also, through COVID-19 CDBG funds, both CDBG 1 and CDBG 3 money through COVID, we've been funding the Housing Utility Assistance Program. This isn't a homeless program per se, but it is certainly a homeless prevention program. And we've been, again, using Home Start. We've been using 2 other service providers in this area. Right now, Home Start has the remaining balance of the funds from the City Council. We've currently put this program on hold because the county's offering a very robust program, more attractive than our program, so it makes sense to steer our residents that need help towards their program. Once that program's done, we'll be up and running again on this program. We continue to participate in the East County Homeless Task Force. We contribute $5,000 annually to that organization. I'm on the steering committee, and some of our staff members are also integral parts of that organization. We currently operate the Neighborhood Quality of Life team. This is a team made up of multi-departments, primarily the police department, public works, recreation department, and we go out and we clean up homeless encampments and ensure that neighborhoods remain pretty and that our parks are usable, and we take care of some significant challenges in our community through that. And that leads into our last program, our homeless outreach effort. This is although it involves the police department, is non-law enforcement based. Our police department goes out and escorts homeless service providers, from Home Start folks to McAllister Institute folks, and we make significant contacts with our homeless community, and the police department is there just to understand and to help out if there's a need to help somebody. So that's kind of our programs in review that we're currently operating. This is sort of some the results. Our outreach program offered by Home Start, we were able to enroll 162 individuals. So Ms. Hernandez is currently working with 162 folks. Through this program, we were able to permanently house 70 individuals this past year. Our Way Back Home program, again, slowed down dramatically, but we were able to permanently house 4 individuals through the Way Back Home program. Through our ECTLC contracts for emergency shelter, we were able to shelter 1,011 individuals this past year. That is phenomenal. That program also has helped to permanently house 283 individuals. So these folks are no longer living in a shelter situation. They're living in permanent housing. Through our rotational shelter, again, very slow this year. We were able to shelter 5 families, and 2 of those were able to secure permanent housing. Through our housing and utility assistance program, we served 103 households. Again, not a homeless program per se, but more of a homeless prevention program. Our motel stay program, we were able to generate 220, or we were able to help 202 individuals be sheltered. If you add up the number of nights they spent sheltered, it's almost 1,500 nights that individuals were off the streets. And that program actually created enough stability so we were able to help get 27 of them housed into permanent housing, again, through Home Start. They were able to do that. Again, East County Homeless Task Force, their goal is not to house individuals, but it's really to coordinate at a regional level and also provide information to the community. It's a great place where we can send folks that want to be involved or have ideas. We can send them to the East County Homeless Task Force, and they can get involved and roll up their sleeves. And in fact, a lot of their leadership actually are folks that just wanted to do something, and now they're helping to run the program. So it's a really great opportunity for people that want to be involved and do more than just complain. Our homeless quality of life team, we held 101 cleanup events in 2020. We as a city cleaned up 148 tons of trash. We also have a contract with ECTLC. They cleaned up over 2,200 tons of trash. That's an astronomical amount of debris that's been removed from our public right-of-ways, from our streets, from our drainage channels, from our parks. And then finally, we spend about a little over $20,000 helping to coordinate 24 different events and providing protection and assistance to our homeless service providers. So that's kind of what we've been able to accomplish in 2020. We're going to put together a bit of a report card. We'll put this on our website. We want to have sort of a document that the council can have sort of readily available so you can share with the public that ask questions about what we're doing. You can share what we've been doing. A little bit of assessment. So we think the outreach program, the Way Back Home, emergency shelter, rotational shelters, the task force, and the outreach program all get gold stars, and we would recommend that we continue to fund those through next year. We also think that the Housing Utility Assistance Program, as those funds are expended, we would recommend not utilizing any more of the CDBG 3 money on that. We do know that there is some additional American Recovery Program money that's coming down specifically for housing, low affordable housing, and homeless assistance. We're looking into what types of pots of money are available for those. So we may be able to extend that program through other funding sources, but we would recommend once that program ends that we no longer fund that program. We've during the goal setting session with council, we talked about some of the enhancements that we want to do to the neighborhood quality of life team. We want to start doing some more power washing of our sidewalks. We probably want to augment some of our municipal code around this program. We want to launch a ride-along program for the general community. We've actually started with our department directors, so they'll all be doing 1 or 2 ride-alongs, and just so we can see how that feels. We'd love for members of the city council to also do this, so you can kind of see firsthand what we deal with on these cleanup events. And then I'll focus on the last one, and that's the emergency motel stay. After talking to staff, after talking to our homeless providers, this program has had an impact, a very positive impact. But ultimately, it has probably not accomplished the city council's goal and staff's goal of helping folks get into permanent housing. It really has been a way to continue to enable a lifestyle, and it's not been focused. And I don't think that's a fault of staff or even our homeless service provider, Home Start. We decided we were going to experiment with this program. I think we've experimented long enough. The funding is now expended, so we no longer have money available. I think there is some real value in getting folks that are in crisis mode, that have capacity and want to be in permanent housing. I think we need to focus a program specifically for them. And Home Start has some great ideas of how to do that. I'll be seeking some direction from the council. If you're okay with that, we'd like to come back to the city council with some more specifics of what that program would look like and how to fund that program. But I think there's some real value in utilizing our motels for that purpose. But just to shift people from a park into a room for one night does not result in permanent support. And we need more permanent support, not just a one-night stay. So we think there's some real value in retooling that program. So I kind of already moved into our recommendations. So I'd say we keep going on our Gold Star programs. I would say that we allocate some more CDBG CV3 money towards emergency shelter. We'll bring that back because we still need to allocate the $800,000 of available funding. We think we need a more targeted motel voucher program, and then we'll continue to augment the neighborhood quality of life program. So that's our report. I know it's a lot of data, it's a lot of information. We'd love to hear the council's feedback on the program. If you're hearing different things about how the program worked, or if there's other directions you want the city staff to work on, but we'll be prepared in the next few meetings to bring back some additional information about the allocation of funding in the motel voucher program. So with that, staff's here to answer any questions or to receive any feedback.
Questions?
Yeah. On the emergency motel stays, I read someplace that we just put them in the motel room if they accept it, because we all know that sometimes they don't accept that voucher. So they accept the voucher, they go into the motel, but then that creates more issues in the sense of, more service calls from police because they're just put in there and they continue with their rough living lifestyle in the motel. Do you know anything about that?
I don't have data, but I do have talked to our police chief, and I've talked to our homeless outreach team. We have seen a spike in calls to our motels throughout the city, and I think there's a direct correlation between the motel voucher program and those calls for service.
Okay, because now I talked to a hotel owner this past week, and last week it was, and He owns 2 properties on East Main Street, right by ECTLC, and he's got a big issue. I emailed you about that. Big issue with homeless outside of his property. And, you know, how can we mitigate? We're trying to get people into motels, we're trying to get them into shelters, and yet they're creating issues for the motels by staying, you know, outside of the property and causing issues outside.
That's exactly right.
Do we have a way to mitigate that?
No, because folks have a legal right to be out there for a period of time. So one of the things that actually Home Start came up with this idea of, rather than sort of the shotgun approach where we work with a lot of motels, we actually focus on 1 or 2 motels. And again, it gets back to some management in some, I'll use the word case management. Once a family or an individual's moved into a motel room, right now we're just, here you go, good luck.
Right.
There's some value in utilizing some funds to actually include a case manager as part of the program, in addition to the housing navigator, where they can get outreach, they can get help, they can help get IDs, they can help find jobs, they can look for drug rehabilitation programs if that's the thing that's needed. They can find longer permanent solutions. So the goal would be to give a more concentrated level of support to a smaller group of individuals, and we think that that will, in the long run, have a bigger impact on getting people into permanent housing.
I agree. And so the wraparound services are a big deal, you know, to get them, whether they're on site or, you know, come in on an as-needed basis. Are we going to be spreading the wealth around, so to speak, whereas one motel isn't going to get all of these motel vouchers, that we sort of maybe move it around so that one place just doesn't seem to be the magnet for it?
Well, I mean, that's an idea, but if you have less rooms going out, that may not be as much of a problem. There's some value in having 1 or 2. I see the value of rotating it too, but having 1 or 2, because if you can guarantee the hotel owner, the motel owner, that you're going to have so many rooms booked, you can start negotiating better terms for a night. That way you can spread those dollars out further.
True. Thank you.
Anybody? Steve?
I had a discussion last week with the council member from the city of San Diego. And he said, hey, you guys are doing that tiny home thing out there on church property. We're interested in doing something like that too. And I thought, okay, finally, somebody else besides El Cajon is like, we're going to go for it. Is there anything you can tell us about where that program stands?
Great question. So as I believe, I'm looking over to Mr. Shute, that there is a proposal that is with the planning department for approval. As you know, Meridian Church offered to sort of host it. Amicus would be the ones that would build it, and then actually Home Start would be the ones that would be managing or case managing those that would be living there. So it's a great partnership in our mind. It gets us out of that business. We took care of the land use issue, and then we let the private sector or the nonprofit sector handle the rest. It's a great business model.
Should we add that to the list of projects, of solutions that we have going on? Is that appropriate at this time?
We should add it to the list. I mean, I'll be honest. We focus on the things that we manage, right? We don't manage that. We've already done, council already did its work, and so as typical, we kind of checked the box and we moved on. But you're right. It's a great story to tell.
And should we consider, if we're talking about funding for Home Start, should that be added to the recommendations that you already have there? Is that additional funding we would need?
That's a good question. They haven't approached us about needing funds for that. What I'm going to assume, I'm going to try to think as Karina thinks right now. I'm looking to her. Oh, as Lauren would think. But, I mean, they have money to do permanent housing, right? And so this is just part of that continuum of housing, getting someone from the street into non-permanent housing, whether it be a shelter or a tiny cabin. and then they can work with those folks once they get some stabilization to get them in the permanent housing. I'm imagining that's going to be part of their plan, but certainly it's an opportunity for us to explore.
Sounds good. On a different topic, McAllister Institute. We hear about them every once in a while. They've certainly got a lot of facilities and presence in El Cajon. Have we ever thought about working with them on anything?
Well, we work with them regularly through our homeless outreach team. They've never approached us for funding. And as you recall, we put out an RFP for folks that wanted to do services. That wasn't something they were interested in. There may be too many strings attached with our funds, so I don't know.
Okay. Because they handle a sector, I think, our existing resources don't, and that's the mental health part. And, boy, that's kind of like the nut we can't crack yet, is how to treat the mental health issue on the streets. Finally, do you think we should include in our spending totals the amount of what I'll call homeless prevention? We spent quite a bit of money this past year on food events, food distribution events, for people who were food insecure. And certainly that might have helped prevent homelessness. So should we consider that in the sum total of what we're spending on this effort?
Yeah, good. When we do our report card, we'll definitely include that. I think there's some value in talking about homeless prevention.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Gary? No? What's our situation on unsheltered homeless right now? And if you could give us some kind of a sense of the unsheltered homeless that we have in the community, how many of them would like to find housing but have been unable to, and how many of them are choosing that lifestyle?
Well, as you know, we rely on the annual homeless point in time count. During COVID, it really wasn't really done well or really well at all last year. So we're relying on pretty old data. It's actually something that the East County region has been having a discussion with the county on maybe doing some of our own statistical analysis to figure out what's out there. But Mr. Wells, we don't know. We don't have good numbers on. I bet Home Start could probably help us with some of those figures, but at my fingertips, I don't have how many unsheltered are there, how many have drug or alcohol issues, how many have some sort of stream of income, whether it be a job or Social Security or disability, and how many are on a path towards housing. I don't know that.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you. Let's see if we have any speaker cards on this item.
We do, sir. We have 20 comments submitted. 3 of them are in person, and the other 17 are from online comments. So with your permission, I'll start with the in-person comments.
Yeah, please.
The first one is Victoria Abanerica. Okay.
Hello, my name is Victoria Brenica. I'm an educator in one of our local Title I schools, and I appreciate the board for voting to expand the recreational opportunities for our families. I'm here to advocate for my students, their families, and our fellow community members. We're in the middle of a world pandemic, and too many of our community members have lost their homes and livelihoods due to it. Cutting funding from homeless programs will hurt my students, and cutting funding from homeless programs will hurt our community. There are currently over 8,000 unhoused individuals in our county, and we have a moral obligation to advocate for them and offer them as many resources as possible. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and again, I'm against cutting funding for homeless programs.
Just out of curiosity, hi. Were you under the impression that we were going to cut funding?
Or limit funding?
Not today.
No, I'm not recommending cutting any funding. We've run out of funding for the shelter program, so we no longer have funding there. I'm going to come back at a later date recommending augmenting that funding again and actually increasing funding, but with a different program. But yeah, I'm not recommending any cuts to funding today.
Just to clarify.
Thank you.
Sure.
Danielle.
From the agenda. Oh, sorry. I'm Danielle. From the agenda.
Danielle, if you just talk to me, I'll go ahead and ask questions of the city manager. Yeah.
that we are going to cut the motel program without a suitable replacement. Is that what we're voting on? Like, we're going to cut it
So
since the funding's
the
done?
question, Graham, is, are we going to cut from the hotel program?
Let me provide some backup information. So, as the council recalls, you allocated $145,000 in CDBG CV 1 and 3 monies for the motel voucher program. Those monies have been 100% expended. So we no longer have any funding for those. So there is no more money. So there is no more program because there's no more money. I'm recommending that I will come back in a few meetings based on the feedback from the council tonight or this afternoon with a replacement program. But the program is still existent if it had funding, but we've used it all.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Can I begin with my comment? Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I want to start by sharing some of the work we've been doing the last few months. On Easter, East County BIPOC, along with many volunteers, provided essential resources and over 125 hot meals to our unhoused neighbors in El Cajon and Spring Valley. While redistributing the community's resources, we had many conversations with the very people these programs impact. It is irresponsible to revoke the motel voucher program without a suitable replacement ready to roll out. It is also extremely privileged to take away essential resources from our most vulnerable residents with no consideration of what this actually looks like for those who live on the streets. We need to listen to the actual needs of these people so that we can uplift the whole community. On Easter, I heard firsthand about the criminalization of poverty. One man shared how he had to pay for a 2-hour trolley ride all the way downtown just to shower. Another man expressed a need for wagons to transport his belongings because he fears that as society returns to pre-COVID cruelty, police will once again harass him for using a shopping cart to keep everything he owns safe. And to top it all off, every time we go out to feed the community, it is brought to our attention that there was a sweep shortly before displacing and criminalizing dozens, if not hundreds, of East County residents who have nowhere else to lay their heads at night. Everything I just described is sick. And if the council doesn't see an issue with our neighbors not having a place to shower, feel safe, or lay their head at night, then I think the city of El Cajon needs new leadership. Since you're all very concerned about the return on investment for all of these programs and not their intrinsic value to society, consider the cost savings by keeping 103 families in their homes and off the streets. Consider the benefits the programs would have on the community's economics, more residents working and consuming as a direct result of your votes today. I'm in strong support of not only keeping the existing programs, but providing funding to expand and improve the programs. I feel like listening to all the budget things and the COVID, we're allocating millions of dollars throughout the city, so I feel like we could spare some thousands for the programs that are going out today because we lack that funding. I also think that the council needs to focus on advocating for our unhoused neighbors and not franchise owners or motel owners, because these programs are in place for those residents, not for the motel owners. And that the effectiveness and the gold standard for these programs should be determined by which programs are actually improving their quality of life, and we should be listening directly to them, not making assumptions on their behalf. And on the note of increasing service calls, the calls are now just concentrated in a single area. The vouchers do not directly cause more service calls just because there's a correlation. Thank you.
Let me see. I think there's a question for you.
Graham, I think it would be helpful to define CDBG 1 and 2 funding and where that comes from, and when it runs out, just to define where that money comes from.
Great point. So typically the federal government, in the form of block grants, and this goes back to many, many years before many of us were born, where block grants were issued to cities. So they're monies that we can utilize for anything related to helping individuals that are low income. So we can use it actually for a lot of things that we don't use it on. We could use it on rec programming. We could use it on helping the Boys and Girls Club, for example. Those are things that we can use it for, but we've never used that. We typically have been using our CDBG money for homeless programming, for affordable housing, and for emergency shelter programs. So that's sort of the long-term history. We were infused because of COVID with some monies specifically for low-income housing or homeless issues. We could have banked the money for a big affordable housing project, but this council chose to allocate those monies to augment the current homeless programming that we currently offer.
I hope that helps. The young lady?
I've got a question, or a couple questions. What do we do with people living on the streets who don't want off the streets? We know there are some. What do we do?
I'm not speaking specifically about that group of individuals. I'm speaking about the individuals that I spoke to directly that benefited from this motel voucher program. So to just say that funding is up so it just vanishes, that's where someone lays their head at night. That's not like something we can really play with. And there are individuals that do want this program, so those are the individuals I'm speaking for today.
So just for my clarity, you're speaking for people who don't want off the street permanently but want some time in a motel on a periodic basis?
They explained the motel program helped permanently house 27, I think it was, residents, so that is a solution. It may not be the statistic you like, but 27 people got off the street because of this program and were permanently housed because of it.
We love that statistic.
And I think the city manager is saying we're going to come back with a targeted thing to say, do you want off the streets permanently? I can bridge that with some motels for the time being. Let's make a plan.
I think it takes more than the average length stay in the motel was 7 days. I think it takes more than 7 days to turn someone's life around. I think it's more of a long-term solution, and that the motels program may be a Band-Aid solution, but it does provide housing for people that are otherwise on the street. So like I said earlier, it has intrinsic value, whether it serves your purpose or not. It serves a purpose for these residents of El Cajon.
We agree with you. We agree it does serve value for people as a bridge from a risky, unhealthy lifestyle on the street towards permanent housing, and the motel can be a bridge, and it will take more than 7 days. As the housing navigator has told us, it's kind of tough to find those apartments right now and things like that. So I think we agree with you that the motel does that. We're looking to help those people who really want to get off the street.
I think we need to help both. I don't think it's up to us to decide who deserves housing and who deserves a shower, whether they are mentally ready or not for permanent housing. Like I said, it's a long-term process. They need months of rehabilitation. They need counseling. They need this, and this, and we need to ask them directly what those needs are instead of just assuming that they just don't want to be off the streets because they can't do it in this present moment.
So we offer, where it's presented that the police and the social workers go out twice a month. What should we do differently?
I don't think you should involve the police at all. I think the unhoused don't trust the police because they're the ones that are constantly persecuting them and prosecuting them for all the other things I just listed. They're being I just explained how poverty is being criminalized. They can't have a shopping cart to push their things around. They can't lay under a bridge at night without being kicked out the day before Easter because we want the parks clean for specific residents of El Cajon.
So if they're using a branded shopping cart,
I think we could provide them with a better means. Like the man I spoke to said wagons would be super helpful because they can literally be ticketed or arrested for using a shopping cart, which I think is ridiculous because stores have a million shopping carts. I've never ran out, but...
Okay. You mentioned you believe that the police were persecuting the homeless and that they should...
Our unhoused neighbors told me specifically that the police were harassing them.
Did you have any firsthand knowledge of this, or was it you're relaying the message?
I'm relaying the message on their behalf.
Okay.
I guess our personal experience is that every time, both on Christmas Eve and on Easter, the parks that we went to in East County that were recommended to us by Crisis House specifically as if you want hot spots with a lot of unhoused residents, every location and every corner we showed up to was empty because it was a holiday. So I feel like that explains how law enforcement harasses our unhoused neighbors and why they wouldn't want them to... 2 officers and 1 psychologist doesn't seem like a good ratio.
So you didn't actually witness harassment by the police. These are things you're being told.
Yes.
Okay. Do you understand sometimes that police need to go out to protect social workers, and that the police, at least in our community, they stand back away from the interaction, and they're there to protect everybody, the person who is being approached, and also the social worker approached them. What do you think of that?
I think that if we are going into these situations to help our unhoused neighbors, then we need to really listen to what they need and what they think is helpful. If they're afraid of working with the police, then why would they take a free voucher from them? Like, why are we sending the police to do this work? There are volunteers that will do, like, if you're worried about saving costs, that we have a whole team of volunteers that will go out and hand them out without spending a single dollar of the city's.
I guess
Like, we're not afraid to interact with them. We don't need the police to escort us to help them.
And certainly anybody can, even a non-social worker or just a neighbor can go approach them if they do. In this case, our police officers accompany people from our contractors, and the police don't interact in that level. They let the social worker interact with the person, and the police stand back. What's your thought on that?
I feel like I can't have an opinion then. If that's what you want to try, then I suggest you ask one of our many unhoused neighbors in El Cajon if they'd be comfortable with that situation.
Okay, sounds good. You've seen a lot of things that we do here in El Cajon to try to help people who are homeless. Have you seen another community do more and some things that we need to think about?
I think that's based on the sheer number of unhoused neighbors we have in El Cajon, so that's why El Cajon specifically should be doing more. The voucher program, like you said, it is imperfect, but until we have whatever replacement you think we need, we can't just revoke a program that determines whether someone has a pillow to lay their head on or not.
Just be clear, no program's been revoked. No program's been revoked, no money's been cut.
So my question is...
My point is that you knew the funding was going to end at some point, so to not have a suitable replacement in place on the day that it rolls over is negligent.
My question is, you've seen all the things that El Cajon does for the homeless. Have you seen another community do more? And if so, what do they do that we should consider?
I think comparison immediately diminishes someone else's struggles.
No, I'm talking about a city's effort. Have you seen another city, another set of leadership, do more programs than what we've listed that we're doing now?
Well, I'm a resident of El Cajon, so I focus mostly on the efforts here.
Okay.
And I feel like by attending the meetings, I've learned a lot about the efforts that we do here, and I don't have the time to look at every agenda of every meeting of every city in San Diego. But I'm here today to fight for our unhoused neighbors in El Cajon.
We appreciate that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. I'd like to ask the speaker.
I just want to remind everybody that we've got probably another hour to hour and a half of public comments.
I'll be quick. So you've seen all the programs that we've got, and you're focusing on the motel vouchers. Are the rest of the programs that we've got going on, is that not sufficient?
I think, well, we heard firsthand how beneficial, specifically, like, without asking about the program, we heard about the motel voucher program multiple times on Easter. And they told us, like, that was a good little, like, a gig for them. Like, that was nice to have, and that they didn't have to go 2 hours downtown to shower. Like, even if it isn't this transitional living facility that we want it to be, it serves a purpose in my mind and in theirs. So.
Right. So we have ECTLC, East County Transitional Living Center. They are building 2 more dormitories, one for men and one for women. They're doing a groundbreaking next weekend. Do you think that that is helpful?
Yes.
Okay. And what about the showers that are being given every 2 weeks at Meridian Baptist Church? Do you think that that is helpful?
I think that's being given at a church every 2 weeks. I feel like
is that not acceptable?
Would you like to shower every 2 weeks?
No, I wouldn't. But I know that when I was homeless, I did what I could to get a shower.
Just because we're doing something doesn't mean we can't do more, is my point.
I totally agree. But you understand that some of these things cost money.
Yes.
And you've got a group of people that want to do as much as possible for homeless. And then you have another group of people that says, why are we spending taxpayers' money for people who do drugs, who do alcohol, who have this risky behavior, that live rough? What are your suggestions to combine the two so that we can come together as a community with both sides? You know, where you've got people saying, no, we're just bleeding hearts, we're just bleeding out money to give to people who don't want to put back into the community. And then we have the homeless community, and we have those, not only those who are homeless, but those who are helping the homeless, are working their hardest, like ECTLC has got great programs. They're trying to do the best that they can, but they're getting flack from everybody else. What do you suggest to bring the two of them together?
I think that politicians pass problematic legislature all the time, and nothing's going to rub everyone the right way. Like, specifically, this is like unrelated, but like the ordinance for protesting in residential areas that made us unhappy, and it still got passed. Like, I think you have to take a stance and support, like, either support them more or don't, because there is going to be backlash. Like, not everyone thinks everyone deserves a place to lay their head at night, but if you believe that they deserve somewhere to sleep, and if you believe that they deserve these resources, then I think you have to fight for it, whether the community is going to support you or not. That's why I'm here today. But also education and showing all the resources that it offers and that it is well-rounded, and showing, I think those statistics were super helpful to show other people that you got a lot of people into long-term housing. And then, since everyone's into cost breakdowns, showing like I said, the cost savings of keeping 103 households off the streets. Yes, we dumped a lot of money into that program for utilities and housing assistance, but what did we save in return by having 103 households times like 4 people per household or more? That's 400 plus people that we kept off the streets because we spent this preventative money in advance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And there are a lot more comments from our friends.
The next speaker card was submitted by Stephanie Harper, but I believe she left. So the next comments are from online submittals. The first one is from Alana, and it reads, the item on the agenda was purposely misleading. This is not an update. You are taking funds away from programs that help people who are in desperate need of it. One of the arguments to remove funding is due to the rise in crime in the area of the emergency hotel housing. Obviously, raising a budget for the police, which includes increasing patrols, is going to increase the rise in crime, especially when you are doing little to nothing for prevention. In fact, you're doing the exact opposite for these people in need. You are actively criminalizing people that desperately need the help. A 10% chance that we can get people in permanent housing is incredibly more beneficial to the community. If there is a better option, then put it on the table rather than putting over 100 families at risk of being unhoused because you couldn't care enough to put a new program in place. You're stripping funding from a program that houses people because of lack of money, but somehow managed to raise the police budget this year. It is a lack of caring about members of your community, or you are really that ignorant to the cycle you're creating. Next comment from Cheyenne Palmer. Please do not defund the programs for our houseless neighbors. They deserve dignity and respect and not to be abandoned. These programs have helped out so many of our homeless, houseless residents, and they have such great potential. You all have the opportunity to prove that you truly care about your people. You all have the opportunity to house so many more permanently. Don't stop now. To stop now would be cruel and careless. 27 homeless folks have already been permanently housed. Don't abandon our neighbors. The next one is anonymous comment. Our houseless neighbors need resources. They need housing, medical care, addiction services, etc. That is the only way to stop the cycle. If we can help our houseless community, we can help ourselves too. We can generate our economy by providing them jobs and helping them on their feet instead of spending our money policing and detaining them. We should spend our money rehabilitating them so we can end this epidemic. Being houseless is not a crime. Next comment. Anonymous, please support our unhoused neighbors. It is your job to protect our community members, especially those who have fallen on hard times. Please don't fail us. Next comment, Barrett Stowers. We should not cut defund programs for unsheltered people. He gave us a website where we can get information. Furthermore, it is more expensive to police unsheltered people than it would be to house them. If you want to improve our city, we would address this concern with evidence-based research, and that article lists a lot of strong evidence to fund sheltering people instead of treating them as being less than human. We are better than this. Let's prove it. From Akiko Memes. I am writing as a former resident of El Cajon to urge the council to continue programs that support people experiencing homelessness and programs that prevent homelessness by providing direct funds and resources to those in need. People who are unhoused, insecure, need sustainable solutions that build towards permanent housing and allow them to plan for their futures instead of fixating on daily survival. From BC Garcia, I urge El Cajon City Council to support our houseless community programs. Also urge before one program ends that they implement a transition program to help assist our houseless neighbors. Additionally, urge that there be no set conditions added to who receives these programs. We are in a pandemic and the El Cajon community deserves relief. Anonymous comment, these programs are essential and have proven to be beneficial to the community. These vouchers should be available to everyone, no conditions. Stopping this program before having another one in place is reckless and risks family stability. These programs have helped people in immediate need of resources and support. Ending the program without a transition leaves families without basic needs. From Lauren Casares, Honorable Mayor and Honorable Council members, please do not vote to end Project Home Start or the Housing Utility Assistance Program. These programs have become vital to our unsheltered neighbors and must remain in place until there is a plan to safely, effectively transition folks into permanent housing with wraparound services and this pandemic ends, so that there are more opportunities for those using the assistance program to have a steady income. I understand this is not a permanent fix, but I urge you to find one before doing something so harmful and hasty. From Nifarat Sansamuth. It should be for everyone. From Danielle Wilkerson. That was you, Danielle? Okay. Chelsea Bennington. It reads, the City Council should have the ability to take away programs like motel vouchers from our unsheltered residents. Houselessness is not a crime. These programs should continue to be available for everybody who needs it, not only those who seem ready for permanent housing. A new effective program must be put in place before stopping the current one. Continue to fund these programs, which have proven to be beneficial to our unsheltered residents and continue to remain essential. From Annette Villarreal. Defunding programs that support unhoused neighbors will cost the council more money in the long run than the current investment. There is a housing crisis in this county and all over the country. We need to continue to create solutions instead of demolishing the current programs that are left out there to help those in dire need of assistance. And from Nikisha T. As a resident of El Cajon, I am against the defunding of any programs that uplift unhoused members of our community. These programs are vital and extremely beneficial to those in need. These services and programs should be plentiful and accessible to all. From Starla Toto, helping to provide housing for our neighbors of El Cajon and East County in general is a major stepping stone in the process of the rebuilding of their livelihoods and autonomy. Looking from the point of view of those who want to defund these programs, it is likely that they also find annoyance in seeing people on the streets. Consider, where else would they go? You want them to find jobs, but how are they going to be accepted to a job if they do not have immediate access to a shower? A 2-hour trolley downtown is not immediate, nor a place to clean their clothes. If East County had a place for them to shower, it would be so much easier and convenient for them to consistently do so. Any person deserves to be able to shower whenever they please, and this right should not be isolated to those of us who live in comfort. I'm sure you couldn't imagine having to take the trolley 2 hours to go and shower before or after work or any time you need to take a shower. And that just proves that it's not all fair nor productive for our houseless neighbors to have to endure that immense inconvenience either. Therefore, the motel program that we currently have set up is essential to not only just general cleanliness, but also to assist them in rebuilding their lives, which is deemed so important by government institutions anyways. From Ashley Birch. Hello, my name is Ashley, and I would like to comment on the housing programs as they are essential, especially during this pandemic. This is a time that the community needs to provide additional support and should be expanding instead of limiting those who is able to access shelter. It is good for everyone in the community to offer housing programs. We need to invest in the people of our community and divest from institutions such as police in order to provide resources to help our community. From Nina, please do not end the housing and utility assistance program and the emergency motel stay program. Getting rid of these programs without something to replace it will hurt our homeless neighbors, and these programs are helping people in immediate need of assistance and resources. And the last comment from Melanie Bennett. Good afternoon. I noticed the roadway in at 1250 El Cajon Boulevard has converted into housing and looks completely full. Could we as a city give tax breaks to motels and empty office spaces to convert to housing? I left a suggestion with Habitat for Humanity that they might consider partnering with motels and offices that wish to convert. Now that people will be working from home more and traveling with Airbnb, there will be more places that can be converted to housing. Affordable housing is a must to help folks off the streets as well as support services. Let's get on the communities that have ended homelessness list and take examples from places that have great success. She gives an address to look something up. Let's become an example to all. And that's the end of the comments.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Steve, did you have a question?
I've got two questions for staff. A couple of years ago, I met with 10 to 12 owners around a round table and who represent 12 of the 19 motels here in El Cajon. They said they share a DNR list, a do not rent list. And I said, what is it? Why do you not rent? Why do you have this list that you share? He said, because they've caused damage to our properties. Do we have any sense in the past year that damage has occurred as a result of the voucher program?
I've heard that, but there may be some value in inviting someone from Homestart to come up and maybe address that. I don't know if Karina or Lauren wants to do that.
Okay, while they're coming up, I have a second question. We certainly have plenty in El Cajon here to take care of. Do you have a sense if the motel voucher program attracted people from outside of our city into the city?
Mr. Goebel, I heard that anecdotally that is the case.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and City Council. As far as the DNR list, yeah, we do have some damages that happen because of the individuals that are in our programs. I wanted to give some clarification, not to go off topic, but just to kind of talk about some of the points that you were talking about. As far as the shelter program, and I really appreciate the advocacy over here. As far as the shelter program that we had initially, that we successfully housed 27 people. With that program, there weren't parameters, it wasn't a long-term plan, there wasn't staffing involved, and so it was kind of just a real quick program that we put together. And what we're really excited about with this new program that was introduced is that it's going to be a long-term program where we can provide intensive case management and wraparound services. And we can really have a strategic plan in how we're going to implement it, and therefore it will, have more value and lead to more permanent, stable housing results. Also, with Meridian Church, I just want to let you know that we are also having conversations with the county about having operation funding through ESG. We currently are operating a COVID response program, and so we are anticipating another round of funding that can help support the operation. So more to come. Of course, I'll be talking with Graham and Jamie as I learn more. And then also we are passing out meals. Right now we pass out about 1,000 meals each week to our unsheltered neighbors throughout East County with a big focus on El Cajon. So going back to the original question, yes, there are some folks that unfortunately, damaged the room, but I would say for the most part, they're pretty well behaved. Thank you. Yes.
How many needles do you think you pass out in El Cajon?
How many meals?
Did you say needles or meals?
No, meals. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm a little shaky. No, meals. We pass out 1,000, and that's a partnership with Lucky Duck Foundation. So that's something that's funded privately, and so that's something that we're already doing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't get your name.
Lauren Pollock.
Lauren, thanks. You're doing a good job. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any questions for Lauren? All right, Lauren, thanks for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Okay. We have done everything, I think, now, and more discussion, or can we have a motion?
I'll move that we adopt the recommendations developed by staff. And I think we covered the Home Start Meridian funding question, so that doesn't need to be added. And the McAllister question was answered, so I move that we adopt the recommendations the staff has presented.
All right, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Thank you. The last administrative report, item 13, is a COVID-19 update, and I'll ask our city manager to tell us about this.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is our sort of our traditional and last administrative report where we talk about where we're at from a COVID-19 perspective. I'm going to cover some active case data, talk about hospitalizations and some ICU figures, outbreak information, and then talk about some of the reopening regulations that are coming down the pike. So as you can see, over the this is data that has been collected painfully over more than a year. You can see that we're down to numbers that were pre-spike during midsummer. So we're in a really good spot, active case-wise. In terms of hospitalization, we're way down in terms of our hospital usage and IC usage. As you can see that we were at, on February 1st, just a few months ago, almost 1,300 hospitalizations and 375 ICU cases. We're now well below 100 ICU. So that's some great news. This is El Cajon's active cases. You can see we're below 200 active cases that exist in the city of El Cajon right now. It's pretty phenomenal, given the fact that we were up to close to 2,000 at one point. In terms of outbreak data, we've been able to mine some data from the county, which has not been the easiest, but we've been able to look at some comparisons of outbreaks per 1,000 in the different settings they give us. In the skilled nursing facilities, we've always known that we've had a much higher outbreak rate than the rest of the county has, tremendously. In other congregate care, we've had less, partly because we don't have as many other congregate care facilities. And then in terms of community outbreak, just things that are happening at businesses or schools or city halls or churches, we're a little bit higher than the county average. And this is a cumulative amount, not active. This is since the beginning of outbreak data being collected. So we are currently in the orange tier. That means that wineries, bars, theme parks, indoor gyms, indoor playgrounds, family entertainment centers, bowling alleys can operate at a 25% capacity. As you recall, these were all closed for indoor activity not too long ago. Outdoor live performances can operate at a 33% capacity. So if we were to stay in the orange tier, when we get to those concerts in Prescott Promenade, we would have to limit it to 33%, whatever number that, we'd have to figure that out. But we hope we'll be back to normal by then. Churches are recommended to be at 50% capacity. The governor just gave some new guidance in that area yesterday, And so a lot of the restrictions on singing and things like that have been lifted. Restaurants are to operate at 50% capacity, as are movie theaters. There's no capacity restrictions on majority of retail, including malls. Food courts are to still operate at 50% capacity, as well as common areas. Schools are fully open. Things that are still closed include nightclubs, indoor live entertainment such as the Magnolia, large-scale festivals, and the likes. So that's kind of staff's report. We're here to answer any questions that you may have, or if there's any additional information you're seeking, we can look for that information.
Any questions? Thanks. Nice report. I appreciate
Sorry,
that.
I know. I've got a short one. Back to the slide on the outbreaks per thousand. This is a really important point for El Cajon. The community number, cumulative for a year at 3.47 versus 3.07. You would expect in a city that had lax enforcement, pro-business thing, you would expect perhaps more outbreaks because we were not as restrictive in enforcing outdoor dining, perhaps, when it wasn't permitted. And throughout this year, we've said, let's depend on the businesses to kind of police themselves and table 6 feet apart, whatever it is. And these numbers show the businesses came through. We didn't need to enforce. We didn't do any worse than anybody else really in the county average.
Yeah, actually, that brings me to a question as well. So that community number, is that carving out the skilled nursing, or is that community as a whole, including skilled nursing?
That is community setting, so that's not a skilled nursing facility. That would be a business, a church, a school. Anything that's not a congregate care facility or a skilled nursing facility would fall under that.
Now, anecdotally, I would, if somebody were to ask me, why did that happen? Why are we 0.4 higher than the county? My guess would be that because of the number of low-income housing units that we have and the number of refugees that live in our town, we have people that are living several people to a small apartment. And whereas Rancho Santa Fe or Del Mar probably has none of that. Would you agree with that assessment?
I think that explains why we have a higher rate case per 1,000 than some of the other jurisdictions. Now, the outbreaks are really at business-type settings, so that would have some spillover to some of that density. National City Experience is the same thing. But if you were to take out two of the businesses, we had two community setting locations that had, I think I could tell this, we had 25 cases at those. So if you were to take those, and that was, I think the average was something around 8 or something like that. If you were to take those two high ones out, we would actually be below the county. So to Mr. Goebel's point, the data does not support this notion that enforcement did any good. In fact, you could actually point that it didn't. I'll just tell an anecdotal story really fast. Our HR director, Marisol Thorne, she was speaking to a group of HR students at San Diego State, and most of them were shocked that our city hall stayed open during the entire pandemic. We instituted safety measures. We wore masks. We cleaned every surface twice a day, including Morgan Foley was out there with bleach wipes wiping down my doorknob twice a day. And so everyone, it was all hands, right? They were shocked, one, that we were open, but they were more shocked that we didn't have mass outbreak and death at City Hall. We had no outbreaks at City Hall. So if you take the proper precautions, this was not a disease to be fearful of.
All right. More questions? Okay, great. Angela, do we have any comments on this?
No comments, sir.
All right. We don't need to make an action on that. We just appreciate the report. There are no commissioner reports on today's agenda. Item 14 is my activities report and is as reported.
Sir, excuse me. We did receive some comments for your activities report.
Oh, okay.
Or under your activities report.
Yeah, sure.
We have 4 comments, and the first one is from David DeRemere, and he lives on Horizon Hills Drive. And he says, as you can see from my address, I live across the street from the proposed housing location for Douglas Badger and Merle Wakefield. In reviewing the Megan's Law website, I noticed that a sexually violent predator, Simon Shaman, released in 2020 and living at 275 Hampshire Road, has gone missing and is in violation of his parole. The information on Megan's Law website unfortunately does not include the county. I am assuming that this individual was released in San Diego County. To your knowledge, was this individual part of the California CONREP program overseen by Liberty Healthcare? If so, what does this indicate about their surveillance protocol? What has the SAFE task force done about it? You folks have more clout than a sole taxpayer. Please look into this.
Graham, I don't know any of those answers to any of those questions. Do you think you could do some research and maybe get back to the gentleman?
Yes.
Next comment from Megan Dunn. Neighbors in the Mount Helix, Horizon Hills area want to thank Mayor Wells and City Council Member Goebel for their support of the issue of fighting against the placement of the group home for sexually violent predators. While we are not in the city of El Cajon, our signs we had made to make neighbors aware of the issue were placed on property within the city and were stolen. And the owner of the home, Giovanni Spinelli, owns several other businesses and properties within the city. Parents are exhausted from all we've had to deal with this year, and now we have another huge fight on our hands with this irresponsible placement by the state and Liberty Healthcare. We appreciate all of your support and letters you have written. From Rosario Wilk, please stop the placement of sexual violent predators in El Cajon. And the last comment submitted is from Kelly de Remier. And it says, I am hoping that the city of El Cajon can continue to support our neighborhood efforts in trying to stop the home at 10957 Horizon Hills Drive from becoming a dumping ground for housing sexually violent predators. We, the neighborhood, have had to fight this pretty much alone. We were blindsided on March 29 in the evening when a news station aired the information that Mr. Badger was intended to be housed at the Horizon Hills address. If it wasn't for our next door connection, no one would have known, and the placement would have been completed without us having no say in the decision. I have a small family daycare for my 3 grandchildren in my home since COVID began. I live 100 feet across the street from Horizon Hills Drive, where they plan to place the sexually violent predators. I've had to scramble to fill out a license, take 20 hours of coursework, get my family TB tested and live scan, provide proof of vaccines, fill out a criminal affidavit, provide a layout of my home inside and out, and have a home inspection done in order for me to operate a daycare that could maybe stop them from placing these men there. My other neighbor directly next door was supposed to close escrow on his house 3 days ago. Now that has been put on hold, and the buyer will not close escrow unless the home is now being used as a home for sexually violent predators. This action will cost the homeowner $1.5 million since he is not able to sell it once the predators are in there. Our property values will be severely impacted. I currently pay over $15,000 a year in property taxes for what? Living in a safe community, working hard to live in a home that we can enjoy our family, let our children play in our neighborhood without fear of them being assaulted. This is unimaginable. We don't want sympathy. We want action. End of comment. And that's the end of the comments.
Oh, thanks very much. I just want to say for the entire City Council, everybody here has written a letter opposing this placement. Everybody here is committed to working and doing everything they can to stop this placement. So we appreciate your comments, and we're with you. Okay. Any more comments on my report?
No, sir.
Great. Let's move on to Mr. Goebel.
No, as reported.
Mr. Kendrick.
As reported.
Ms. Mitchell. Okay, and Phil?
Yeah, mine are as reported.
Okay, great. There are no general information items on today's agenda, and there are no first or second readings on today's agenda. Next page. We're at closed session now, and our city attorney will recite the title and lead us into closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. The City Council will meet in closed session on one item. It's a conference with legal counsel on existing litigation pursuant to paragraph 1 of subdivision D of Government Code Section 54956.9. It is the matter of Francisco Lopez versus the City of El Cajon.
I'll make a motion to move into closed session. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Okay, Mr. City Attorney, would you report on the actions taken in closed session, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The City Council met in closed session on a conference with legal counsel for existing litigation as described in the agenda in the matter of Lopez versus City of El Cajon and gave direction to its legal counsel.
Thank you. All right, this brings us to adjournment, the regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council, El Cajon Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency, held this 13th day of April 2021 is adjourned till Tuesday, April 27th, 2021 at 3 o'clock p.m. Thank you.